Welcome back, friends. I am your host, Ronnie Calla, here today with the beautiful Tamara Rose, founder of the Divine Success Method, creator of the Divine Self-Mastery Program, and also my sister. If this is your first time joining us, Tamara's been guiding women to break free from patriarchal paradigms for over 15 years, and this is where we get to hear her exclusive expertise. Thank you for being here, Tamara.
Oh, it's my pleasure anytime.
So if you are someone who is driven, introspective, maybe a bit of an overachiever, but also done with the way we've been taught to succeed by pushing, proving, and striving, this episode is for you. One thing I wanted to start with, Tamara, we did not get to dive into you quitting corporate culture on our episode last week. And that seemed pretty profound and pretty important for like your life and your journey. And I'd love to dive into that today. Could we start there?
I mean, my whole life is different since that pivotal moment. So I would say it was pretty pivotal, pretty good, pretty important one. Yeah.
Let's start there. So you were top sales rep for your company in North America. You had 4 properties, 4 houses, and what else was happening that you were
I was
successful?
not even 30. Like, I thought about that for a moment. I was like, I hadn't even turned 30. I owned 4 properties. I was like sales, top sales rep managing all fucking Western area, North America. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you could say live in the good life, but like, was it?
You were successful by societal standards.
100%. 100%. Like
by old
big
standards,
house, whatever. But like, here's the interesting thing. You go like, and you check all the boxes, right? And we can talk about all that, like go in depth. We can go in depth on any one of those, but like you check all the boxes. And then I remember these moments where like you come home, maybe it's a Friday, I'm in this big house. I turn on the TV, I veg out, I fall asleep on the couch. I remember I had 2 cats. One was like left outside and like meowing to come in, and I'm like, oh God. And I wake up and let her in. And, I was maybe 28, 29. So like, was I fulfilled? No. Like, was I lit up? No. Like I think the experience is a little bit on autopilot, numb, going through the motions. And like, I remember that. Like, I never do this anymore. This isn't part of my framework. To come home, turn on the TV, numb out, fall asleep on the couch, wake up, put yourself to bed, and like do it all over again the next day. You know what I mean? Like, that's unfathomable to me now.
I know so many people who do that right now. And given the state of the world, I think it's like a normal response to like do that right now.
The dumpster fire that is the United States of America.
Yeah.
Welcome to the dumpster fire. I mean, but now even in the dumpster fire, like, I love every moment of my day in my life. So yeah. So that was like interesting to go back to that moment. But then there was what I called the quarter life crisis.
Yeah. Well, before you tell us about the quarter life crisis, like what had you pivot? Was it the quarter life crisis that had you pivot and quit your job?
100%. The quarter life crisis. Yeah. So I had no inclining, like there was no thought to quit my job. I had gone from the new home building real estate, the new home building industry, like always was a passion. I went into sales on the opposite side of the table. I'd worked in a couple sales, and I remember like wanting to be really great at what I did. So where I had challenges with my bosses, they became my best friends. Where I had, where there was like money stuff. I mean, I was making really good money and like not like I had no kids, like I had no significant other. So the money was good. The bosses were like buds of mine. There was no challenges. There was no thing, what I mean?
No reason or like trigger that would have had you want to leave your job.
100%. There was like no thought process like, oh, I feel like I should quit this year. Not before Disney.
But then something happened at Disney.
It was so weird. Well, so do you remember how old you were?
I want to say I was probably 10. So if you were 28, that was...
I was probably 29.
You're probably 29. So that was about, what, 20, not 20,
you
maybe
were 11.
16 years ago. I was probably 11,
No,
10 or 11.
10.
Yeah.
God, I thought you were like 13, but that must have been Colleen's daughter.
Yeah.
She must have
She
been
was
like
with
13 or
us.
15, right?
Yeah. She was 6.
So, okay, so for listeners, let's paint a picture. I am in my late 20s, and I take my sister, who was about 10, and my best friend's daughter, who's 13, 15, 16, something like that.
Who's like your
We-
niece, like your.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we all like she flies with me out to Florida to visit you and dad. And I'm like, oh, we're going to go to Disney for the day. This is going to be great.
Mhm.
We pack up our stuff. We're having a fantastic time. I'm like on the phone, like I called into work or something happened with work. I remember there was like a phone call. And then we go into the Lion King. Like there's fucking cartoons on the screen and we're sitting there on the safari.
For those of you who don't know, it's at Epcot.
Oh, fuck.
It's
It's
at
at Epcot. It's
Epcot,
not
and
even
it's a
Disney.
10-minute little mini movie about the Earth and the planet. And like, there's clips of Lion. It's not there anymore. They've replaced it, but it
Of
was
course I did. It
the
was not that pivotal.
It was to you.
It
to
was.
know.
I am probably the only one
Mhm.
that it was that pivotal of a moment, and like it's kind of the silliest conversation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
To like
it's
to
like
describe.
saving the planet and recycling and like this is what happens when we don't, and like it was like a very cutesy movie about saving the Earth.
And Pumbaa and
Pumbaa and
Timon are on
Timon were
there.
telling the story.
Yeah.
Yes. So you watch
Fuck.
this movie.
I watch it. It was like 15 minutes or whatever the fuck you're saying, and I start crying.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I crying? And I'm like, but it's so beautiful. Like the African safari, and it's so beautiful. And look at that started the day-long process of the quarter life crisis that changed my whole life. And so
it was probably the first thing that we did too. It was probably like 11 a.m. where it started the day.
It was. And then I am like, okay, so to walk people through this. So I'm watching this on the screen. I'm watching this African safari pass across my view. And there's something inside of me that's like, I should be there. I should take those pictures. Those pictures are beautiful. Like, what is that about? And my background, I did real estate. I own properties, but like I had always studied photography, and here I was watching these like beautiful sceneries. Do you know what I mean? And I was like so moved by the scenery. And I was like, I should be doing that. And there was this moment there's this moment where I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I'm not married and I don't have kids. Like, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. And I started crying. I'm weeping I start crying. I get on the phone with I'm with my best friend's daughter, Colleen's daughter. I get on the phone and I call Colleen, and I'm crying in tears on the cell phone at Disney, Epcot, clearly it wasn't Disney. And I'm just weeping, having this crisis of life. Like, what am I doing with my life? And literally we talked until the phone died. I had now I'm with two kids and I have a dead cell phone because I've had a fucking day. And I remember being with you guys and you guys don't know what the hell's going on. And I'm like, go on a roller coaster. Go on, I don't know. Like, you have
go on
to
Space Mountain.
Go somewhere. I cannot do this today. Was like not one of my finer moments of life.
I was 10 and I didn't understand what was happening. I was like, I guess you were really moved by the movie. Like, I guess it was really important to you. I don't know.
You're like, Pumbaa and Timon really nailed it. So I'm on the phone with my best friend, and all I could gather was like, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be, like, I need to be somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And what flashed in my awareness was, they always say, like, if you had the time, what would you do? And if you had the money, what would you do? Right? Because those are the two biggest limiters. We still deal with people's shit on that, right? And you go, okay, if I had all the time and all the money, what would I be doing? That was a question I asked myself right at that moment. I was like, I would be traveling. I would be going to Africa. I would be like taking pictures. I would be like, not fucking same shit, different day scenario. That was like real aha.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, okay, I'm going to quit my job. Like, it was just very clear. Like, I had to get through all the emotion. And then I was like, I'm just going to quit my job. And then came, so you and I, we get through the day and we go home and like we go back to Dad's house. Mm-hmm. And I remember being like, well, gonna quit my job. And he was like, tomorrow, and this was the difference in the generation, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow? And I was like, no, I mean, I got some properties. I got to figure out about that shit. Like, I'm going to come up with a plan. I was like, not tomorrow, but probably in a couple months. Mm-hmm. And he's like, do they not pay you enough? I was like, I make more than you do. I think that's the wrong question. He's like, do you not like your job? I'm like, my bosses are my buddies. He's like, why would you quit? And I'm like, and that's the thing right mm-hmm. there. That's the thing that always holds people back, right? Is like, well, why would you quit? I had a fucking quarter life crisis at the happiest place on earth. I think that's like,
that's
I should pay attention
for me.
Should pay attention, and it was like, it makes no logical sense. And that was like all the reasoning that you could slap in front of me. And I was like, yep, not fucking staying there, gonna quit, gonna move on, like gonna do the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Haven't gone back to corporate since.
Okay, so you set up your life, you sold your properties, you quit your job, then what?
And then I started traveling. So so this was the first thing I did. I remember somebody saying, well, why do you have all the properties? Right. So I owned 3 at the time. The housing market was crashing. So it was like, what, 2008, 2009, whatever. That bubble was crashing. That's how we would know how old you are.
Yeah, right. We can do math that way.
Yeah. So the housing market is crashing and somebody goes, why do you have the properties? And I was like, security. So that's how I banked my security. And they were like, okay, because then I had the framework of why did I have it and like what was going to be my next move. And so the next move was, okay, I owned 3 at the time. So I bought one more. That would positive cash flow me because the other 3 were shit. If you want to know what not to do in real estate, I'm your gal. I've really figured out what not to do.
Or maybe like what not to do in life. I think you've lived through lots of things. You could now tell us the book.
I can give great advice because I did it all fucking wrong on the first go round. I've lived multiple lifetimes already, and
that's how I've had the success plan now, so I don't have to deal with all that shit.
That's right. What makes you qualified to coach people? Well, I've done it all fucking wrong, so I figured out what fuck to do. So I was short selling 3 of the properties, and then I went to buy one more property that would positive cash flow me for security. And then I rented it out because I wanted to travel. Mm-hmm. My ex-husband allowed me to couch surf while I traveled, and I stuffed all of my stuff in his garage.
Before you were married, before you were really dating.
That's right. We were just buds. We were buds. And then I traveled. So I went to like Nicaragua and like learned a little bit of surfing. Had a passport incident at the airport. It was super fun. My friends left me in Houston and went to Nicaragua. That was great. I went to Costa Rica for a couple of months, house sitting. Mm-hmm. I wasn't couch surfing. It was house sitting. Surfed some more, did some yoga, hung out, went. And then I was like, I want to go to Africa, right? Because that was the whole big aha. I went to Bali, went to Thailand. I started expanding my awarenesses. So I went to Bali and Thailand first. I read The Soul of Money during that travel, which was like really eye-opening and anchored a lot of divine, like feminine essence, I would say. Mm-hmm. I came back and I was like the best salsa dancer I'd ever been. I had like this attraction magnetism thing start happening where like, I've got like crazy ass dating stories from that time in my life. And so I could like, so I unknowingly like embarking on this like divine feminine, this like anchoring in a new essence, like anchoring in the being versus the doing, and like shifting my energy field. And so and then I ended up finally going to Africa and worked that out, and like lived in a mud hut for 5 weeks and did community projects and hung out with high school kids, and, you know,
Peed in a bucket.
peed in a bucket, lost lots of weight, got costochondritis, had to go to the emergency room. I got cursed by like a local lady at some like divine cave somewhere. I mean, it was a wild ride. I'm surprised I made it back. So fun. I've also found the number one the only surf spot in Ghana. So I've surfed around the world too. Yeah. So Bali was my favorite place to travel. Ghana gave me great memories. Costa Rica is where I like really like found some peace, I feel like. And that just kind of started this awakening process, right?
So going back to last week's conversation about like overcoming fears, intuition, trust, and action, like how would you say you really applied that inside of like this whole journey?
I mean, sometimes I feel like our intuition is real like quiet. That was not one of those moments. My intuition was very loud. And so I think it was honoring, I'm quitting my job. Like that's a big thing. And like honoring, I'm quitting my job. It's kind of a big deal given where I am. And I'm going to honor the entire process of setting it up. So it took me 6 months to actually leave my job. But it was like, I told people, I had them like, I put my ass on the line and they were like, you're quitting. I'm like, I'm quitting. Like I'm strategically putting my life in place, but that's what's happening. And then, and the intuition and action, like a lot of the shit I was doing made no sense. Do you know what I mean? Like I owned a property, but I rented it out and couch surf. Like that's not actually, that doesn't make any logical sense either. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was starting to play with the energy of like what money is too, where you're like, somebody would give me money for this. It might not be me working, but it's something else. Do you know what I mean? And so even traveling to Africa, I found a way to be the chaperone for a bunch of kids and head up their fundraising. And then I went to Africa for free. Do you know what I mean? So like flights paid and everything taken care of for 5 weeks. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
yeah. So it was just one of those things where that's like the flow. And it really taught me this immense capacity to just surrender. And so surrender when you're in a foreign country, and surrender to like whatever shows up next, and surrender to it's all going to be okay. You know, and like who's in charge? I am.
It sounds like it's like very creative ways of working things out. Like I'm not like, if it's not paying for these flights and for how to get there and for the whole trip to Africa, like what is another creative solution to like have that all work out?
Yeah, like the moment, here's what happened. The moment I was like, I'm going to go to Africa. And this was like me talking to also my Jewish friend. She was so funny. I've always had like Jewish best friends. She's like, well, you should go live on a kibbutz, which is like basically a commune in Israel where like you'll be like farming or doing something that contributes to the community, right?
Oh, okay.
I was like,
yeah.
She was trying to shack me up with she was like, I'm going to get you a nice Jewish man. Like that was her whole goal in life.
Okay.
So she's like, you should go work on a kibbutz. It was like very funny. I did investigate it. I didn't end up going that route, but I was like, I quit because at this point it had been like a year and a half of traveling or doing different things and like kind of coasting and chillaxing and like whatever. I also had enough money set aside where I was like, okay, this will last me. So I got very logical. This will last me if I live the way I'm living right now. I've got a year and a half on reserve You know what I mean? So I had like cut down all my expenses. I'm like, I have a year and a half on reserve. And then, so I was like, I can't panic until a year and a half. That's when I can start looking for a job or something else. But I'm like, there's no panic zone for a year and a half. And so like, you have to understand, my parents are like, are you going to go back to work? And I was like, I am not going back to work. But that literally was the fucking conversation. Like every time I would hop on the phone with mom or dad, they would be like, Joe, have you found a job yet? I was like, look, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm never going to go find a job ever again. And they're like, what are you going to do? I'm like, it's crazy. I don't know, but it's not that.
Oh my God.
And so it's holding that energy.
It's like that conviction for every time somebody's like, oh, like that thing may not work out. Like, what are you going to do about that? And you're like, fuck you. It is going to work out, bitches.
Bitches, that's where we're going, you know? And then it was like, and I started coaching. Like people were asking me to like facilitate and coach them. And I was getting trained in the coaching. And I was like doing coaching calls in Costa Rica for this company, volunteering and stuff. And so I was like getting trained. And I was just like, gosh, I really love that. Gosh, I really like that. Gosh, I'm
now,
really good at
what
that.
started your journey in coaching? Was it Landmark when you were, okay.
Yeah. So I had done the Landmark Forum, which was like mind blowing at the time. Very not woo woo for me, like very ontological, brain oriented. Like I was a very type A personality. So if you were coming at me with any woo woo shit, I would have punched you in the face. I would have been like, yeah. Oh yeah. My ninja kill you skills would have come in for sure. And I was like, no dice. And so Landmark made a lot of sense. It was very analytical. It fit my framework and I like fell in love with it. And so I was just like, what programs can I do? And I ended up doing like all the programs and I coached anything I could. And I was really, here's something interesting I probably haven't ever shared with you. People would be like, why do you want to coach, or why do you want to do this program, or like, what is there? And I didn't have any it wasn't like I want to make money, or I want, like, there was nothing like that. What I wanted to learn is there was like, they had this distinction in this training, like, how do you listen to somebody so well that the listening you have has them disappear the problem? And I was like, ooh, that's real good. I want to learn that. And so they would be like, what do you want to learn? I'm like, I just want to learn to listen so good that shit just disappears. It was like, I couldn't have said that anywhere else on the planet, but like I could say that like in their trainings, you know? And so I ended up doing like their first flagship program, which was 3 days, their second one that was 3 days, their third flagship program in their series, which was like 3 months. And then I was like, I want to do the 6-month program. I want to coach this 6-month program. Now I want to coach a 6-month program. I want to coach anything and get my hands on. So then there would be like random other things happening. They're like, we need coaches. I'm like, I'm your girl. And I just would like eat up all the coaching.
Now for you, anytime there's like action to take, you're like, I'm in, I don't care. Like, here's my credit card. Like, I'm in. Okay. And there's no thought or doubt or fear or any limitations that really show up for you when it comes to that. And that's not normal, by the way. Like, I would say the average person probably deals with something as far as like, do I have the money? Do I have the time? Do I have the...
Yeah, I think, and what's coming up to share is like, I look at the world, not can I do it? I look at, oh, how can I make that work? How can I do it? Mm-hmm. And that's been like literally everything. So how can I go to Africa? Well, I had to start with, I was like, who do I know that's been to Africa? Nobody. I was like, well, I should ask some people if they know anybody who's been to Africa. And sure enough, somebody was like, oh yeah, I know a teacher in Coronado Island who takes kids to Africa. And I was like, people fucking send their kids with a teacher to Africa? Like, that sounds stupid. I'm in. Let me talk to that person. Like, what? When I bought my first $1 million home I like kind of toured areas, but I was like, I can't. The first thing people would say is, I can't afford that. And I was like, how could I afford that? Like, how could I get that? How could I do that? And I think that's probably the biggest reframe that anybody could take on, because you came here to like create.
Yeah.
So the second you're like, I can't, or I don't know how, then that's what's going to happen. I just look at it like literally everything in life. I'm like, how can I do that?
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting distinction, because sometimes when people see you, they may think like, oh, you had all this money. So of course, like you had the means, you had the time, you had the money, you had the means of like making this work or building your company or buying the $1 million house, when in reality, it was like just the getting interested in how can I make that work, and like a reframe and a different perspective.
Yeah. And the more that this is what I see, the more people function. Okay, listener, here's your big takeaway. The more you can function from, how do I make that happen? Or how do I have that happen? Or what does it take to have that happen? Or how do I do that? Or how do I create that? Pick any one of those fucking questions that works for you. And you like just live like that. You're going to find the answer all the time. And then it just becomes like, it gets bigger and better. Cause you know, it's like, I just went to fucking Africa for 5 weeks for free. That's what that like, I just got interested and I was like, I got to know something about something. Oh, tell me about the thing. Oh, you have a problem. I was like, look, I don't think you understand. This is literally how this happened too. And I feel like people should understand this. I go, how do you take kids who are like 16 years old? First of all, I wouldn't give my 16-year-old to nobody. I don't give a fuck who you are. You know what I mean? And I was like, so people just hand over 16-year-olds for like 4 weeks in Africa? She's like, yeah. And I go, wait, how do you, like, what do you do about the funding? And she goes, oh, well, their parents pay for their trip and the parents pay for the like goodwill things that we're doing. So we were like going to like build a computer center and revamp the school in this little town in Ghana, Africa, right? And I was like, Jigga, what? So they give you like $4,000 and their child, and they're like, yeah, take them to Africa. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, what's the like response rate on that? Because I feel like you got lots of no's. And she's like, yeah, you know, it's hard. And I was like, all right, this is what I think.
I was gonna say, growing up in a Christian church and people that do, what's it called, where you like go and do missions, yeah. Like I mean, kids do that all the time.
100%. If it's connected to the church that they trust. This was the art teacher at the fucking high school, and I was like,
oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. I was like, okay. I was like, look, let's make this system a little better. One, I feel like we should fundraise because people will give money to this shit, okay? People love helping other people, and you got rich people in Cornell. Like, we're going to fundraise. And I'm happy to work with the kids and teach them how to fundraise. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and you're going to need, what are we talking, 6 kids? You need chaperones. So we should know how much money we need to cover chaperones cost and kids costs and like all the costs of the thing. She's like, okay. And lo and behold, we started fundraising. I was like working with the kids, having them write letters, having them receive donation checks, having like, we made like a fucking nonprofit out of this shit. Oh, you know, so it was like, and then I was talking to Kirsten, was her name. I said, you know, she's like, oh, I'm going to go pitch at Rotary Club. I'm going to go pitch at Lions. I mean, she's going to go pitch at all these clubs. And magically, because you know magic, there was like some dude there who loves Africa, who has a mansion in La Jolla on the cliffs, and his house is like an art collector studio. And I think he was in some like white collar crime or something, because he needed to like do something really nice. So he hosted like, it was like $100 or $200 a head dinner tickets. And then we did all the silent auction stuff. And that took us over the edge on the fundraising. I think there was raised like $10,000 to $30,000 for the night or something like that. we ended up at like $42K for the whole thing to be able to give back to the community and like cover the cost of the trip, like all these things. And I was like, dude, that's how you do that shit. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was like this really fun experience of connecting with the community and like anything is possible and like being with these high school kids.
And because you got involved and you got interested in like how do I make like what's it going to take for that to happen, like you funded your trip, but also all of the kids that went with you, like their parents didn't have to pay $4,000 for their kid. You had like the whole community getting involved too.
The whole community got involved. All the kids got involved. It was like, and you know, and then you have, what did we do when we were in Africa? We got them like school, they were sitting on the floor. They got school desks and chairs, and we revamped all of the school, like painting the walls and new chalkboards. We're just painting chalk. There's like chalk paint. We're just painting it all over, you know, and we're painting the desks, and, you know, we built up the computer room. Cause here's the interesting thing. And it's interesting, like getting my eyes open to these different communities where you think like, oh, if we just give them money, it'll be okay. And it's like, that's never the solution. Even just giving them education isn't the solution either. It was like a very layered experience. But, you know, they were like, oh, in order to go to high school, you have to take a test about computers. And these kids had never seen a computer. And you're like, how do you take a test on computers if you've never seen a computer? So part of the work we were doing was getting the kids a computer lab so they could take a test so that they could go to high school. You know, it's like one little thing that like is in this chink in the armor almost that you're like contributing to, you know? So it was great. It was really fun.
One other thing I want to say, when you're asking like, how do I, like, what's it going to take for that to happen, or how do I get that to happen? A lot of people get stuck in the how. Like they have to have like a plan that goes A, B, C, D, E, X, like the whole thing. And I don't think that's the case. But, and some people ask like, how do I make that happen from like a disempowered standpoint of like, because I can't and I don't know how, but I sense it's a little bit different for you.
No, for me, I'm like, it's more like you're playing. Like my mom was an artist, and that's what comes to mind. Like she would just make like mosaic was her thing. She would just break up tiles and make mosaics everywhere. And like, you know, it was always like very creative. And like, if you think of like life as that creative, where you like break apart all the tiles and you're going to put the mosaic back together, it's a little bit like that. Cause you're like, you know, there's chaos of going like, are we going to hit our numbers? Like that fundraiser didn't even happen until like maybe 3 weeks before we were leaving for Africa. Like it wasn't, we were like, we're not really that close. And so you keep going like, well, what else could we do? And how else could this go? And what else, you know, it was like, the kids are like, we're going to host a bake sale at the high school. You're like, yeah, you know, like who else could you ask and like send letters to, you know? And so you just keep doing it. But that energy is what's cultivating the outcome. It's because you're interested and you're in the energy flow. When you're waiting to come up with the whole plan, you're just like never going to get there because you're in the waiting and trying to figure it out, you know? And it's like all the answers come in the creation energy of it.
Yeah.
I notice.
I love that. That's awesome. Thank you for that like distinction too. But I want to get back to, I feel like we took a little detour on your like trip to Africa.
Oh, story time. Y'all get your tea.
It was a good story time. It was a good story time.
Yeah.
I want to get back to like your journey as a coach. So you got started in Landmark. You took like all the programs in Landmark. There was nothing for you about time or money or like hesitation. You were just like, I'm about that, which is...
That was a wild ride. There would be like, we had one program, it was like a Friday night. For 3 hours, I think, on a Friday night. And I lived 2 hours away from the center. And so I would have to drive 2 hours for a 3-hour Friday night course. And I would just be like, I'm not going back. Like, I'm going to stay at my best friend's house. And like, I drive to her house at like midnight, eat some cereal, pass out, and like wake up in the morning. You know, it was like, that's what I'm doing. I'm committed to that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So then from those courses, you took 52 other ones
of the 53 total. That was the beginning of them.
The beginning. And then you built your business from there. And I want to talk about bringing the conversation of like divine feminine, masculine energies
Yeah.
into like what was present for you as you were building your business, because divine feminine energy has been something you've been looking at for the last maybe 5 years or so, and you've had your business for maybe 15. So what has that journey been like for you, navigating like feminine, masculine energies and like where you're functioning from?
Well, I think what's interesting is that the intuition is such a feminine quality, right? And so every time that I like took that intuitive leap, I think that put me on my path, and that was very divine, right? I think, but having the patriarchal framework so ingrained in me for so long, I think that even though there were like moments of that, it was like my journey up until the last 5 years has been primarily in the patriarchal framework. And so getting really interested in like, well, what is feminine and how is that different than divine feminine? And so it starts to peel back the layers of the onion from a spiritual perspective and also like a personal experience, and then integrating like intuitively what you can sense and feel that's happening on the planet, right? And so that awakening, I really feel like, and that's why it's only been like the last 5 years, like that awakening of the divine feminine has only been really active in the last 5 years. And so then, you know, it's like it wasn't really top or front of mind until the last 5 years, right?
So then where would you say you were functioning from? Like it sounds like you would say you were functioning from the more patriarchal framework as you were maybe taking your courses, building your business. And so at one point you even reached where we had like 35 coaches, we had 50 people in our flagship program. Like we had built out this massive infrastructure, if you will.
Yeah, I was fucking exhausted. If you ever want to know what not to do, I'm just kidding. Totally take that and then take a fucking nap too.
Yeah. But what was that like as you were building out and you didn't have this divine feminine integrated yet?
Yeah, I was exhausted. I mean, I was just like, I look back at photos because I was married, breadwinner, you know, still training my husband on how to be a house husband and a stay-at-home dad. Like I had trained him for like 4 years. That wasn't working. That was one of the big reasons why we got a divorce, you know? So it's like, all I really wanted was a wife. Like, just kidding. Kidding, not kidding. If he's listening, I'm kidding. If he's not listening, I'm not kidding. No, so it's, you know, it was exhausting juggling it all. And I still had a great framework for not working so hard. Do you see what I mean? So like, it's this interesting question that you're asking, because it was like, yes, I'm doing it all, which is the, I would say that's the wounded feminine, right? Like doing it all. Doing my best to train everybody, right? So training coaches and training the staff and training the ex-husband, right? And so the bandwidth was, I had a massive bandwidth, but I was very exhausted. Like I look back at photos and I was fucking tanked, just done.
And Cece was, what was it, four? She was like a toddler at the time too.
Yeah. Like I remember like, you know, ex-husband's supposed to be watching the kid, and we have like one call every Wednesday. I've always had Wednesday calls for as long as you've known me, at 1:30 to 3, and bitch would walk in the middle of the call. I'd be like, "Where's your father?" I don't know, mama. And I would have to make everything okay. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm making it okay that she comes in. I'm making it okay with my clients. It's like, I am tired of making it okay. I have one fucking call a week. God damn it. Oh, and he would be like, babe, it's okay. I was just on the toilet. I'm like, don't shit for this hour and a half. Like, that's all you have to do every week. Don't shit during this time. Okay. You know, and it was just like, Like, I remember that. I remember being at an event and like, like my first on stage event, like juggling her, or, you know, God, it was like, yes, I remember my first retreat I held after she was born. She was like 4 months old, and Brian got sick. So I had to like reschedule the entire retreat schedule with my clients and like the personal sessions and everything. I'm in Cabo. I'm like, you know, she's 4 months old. I'm like pumping. I had to pump. He's sick as a dog. At one point, he ends up going to like the Mexico, like pharmacy or like doctor. He gets checked out. They give him a bunch of syringes that I'm supposed to shoot in his ass. And we're on like the last night. And I've been taking care of the kid, leading the retreat, taking care of him. I'm at my wit's end. And it's the last night. And I'm like, oh, we have a sunset cruise. And if you saw this picture, I was like, shit, and we got to leave in 45 minutes. And everybody forgot. I had breast pumps. He was like, but I need my shot. And I'm like, fucking show me on YouTube. Like, I don't know how to, and the syringe needle was like this long and you had to like stick it. And like Cece's like, and I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, I don't even know what I looked like. I look like hell leaving that. I know I look like shit, right? Because I was like, and I'm trying to do my makeup, like whatever. And I remember it's like, I'm like, come here. And I'm like sticking the syringe in his ass. And he's like, that didn't work. I was like, wait, that didn't work. I got to go in again. I was like, this is chaos. And so it was just chaos all the time, you know? And so that burnout cycle and that chaos and the thing that women talk about, like, I get it. Like, I can totally get it. And then at some point I was like, enough's enough. I'm not doing that shit no more.
Yeah.
There's another awakening.
Was there a trigger for that one? Was there something specific that, like a specific moment that happened that you remember?
No, I think that one was a little bit more evolutionary. I mean, I think the divorce was a big part of that. Like getting stuck in the provider role.
Yeah.
Just is real nauseating. Like, it's just gross. Like, you know, and never relaxing, never having your plate fully, like getting things taken off your plate. And at some point you're like, dude, we're just not doing this no more, you know? And so I think, you know, and I think that's why a lot of women are getting divorced and staying single, or like they have super high standards, because you're like, it's so much more peaceful. Like being a single mom, super easy compared to what that fucking like roller coaster was. You know what I mean? And you're like, so like if I'm looking for a partner, it's about bringing a partner in who's going to take shit off my plate, you know, or like balance some shit out. But like, you know, you get to a point where you're like, I can't teach anybody anything else anymore. I'm like super tired. So like you gotta know how this rodeo is going, you know?
Well, how has it been? And so that was about 5 years ago that you like had that awakening.
Yeah.
So how has it been learning how to function differently? How did you start?
I slept a lot. Oh my God. I slept so much. I had always prioritized the sleep of Cece. I remember that. Like, it's always been part of my conversation. Like, the one thing, what's the one thing I focus on? Sleep of Cece and her nervous system.
Yeah.
And then there was this conversation of like, oh, my nervous system, right? And then there's this essence that starts to happen. The more that you say yes to yourself, the more that you honor what you want, the more that you're even asking that question. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think we don't ask that question. Like, I was still like taking care of everybody and taking care of the business and taking care of the staff and just like at some point you just go like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore. And everybody's heads flips. You know what I mean? Because I had all those energetic agreements to do all that. And then, you know, so that was hard. But it was like the more that you go like, well, what do I need? What works for me? Start asking those two questions. That'll change your whole fucking reality. And I went from, instead of looking like, once you get your needs met, then you can actually ask the question, what do I want? And so a lot of people can't hear that question, what do I want? Which is actually another fascinating point. Do you know what I mean? Like, if your needs aren't getting met, you actually have no idea what you want. You think you know what you want, but they're usually connected to needs. So you have to be willing to be like, okay, well, let's look at needs versus wants. Let's distinguish them out. Where are my tanks empty? Am I willing to like fucking put my airplane mask on first? You know, and that just becomes a journey of doing it all the time, of honoring it all the time, of knowing your value and your worth inherently so that you care for yourself all the time.
And I feel like for a lot of women who have been in that always taking care of other people, it can feel selfish. Like
100%.
I'm being selfish if I take care of myself first. Like I can't put myself first because I need to take care of everyone else. So like
Oh, fucking patriarchy right there. And like and that's a wild thing. Like, so
yeah.
ladies, gentlemen, theys, thems, and gays, if you're listening, see where you fall on the spectrum. Okay, so first and foremost, a dude will be like, oh, I need to sit on the couch. Like, comes home from work. He's like, oh, I gotta sit on the couch. I had such a hard day. I need some time. That dude is like, knows what he needs and is fucking taking care of it. And there could be a fire in the backyard and homie would fucking not know. Okay. Women, not only we are so wired to care for everybody else. And if we can, we will, at the self-sacrifice of us. So we were trained at self-sacrifice. Well, we have our fucking attention on everybody else all the time. And to the detriment, like, so ladies, if you're listening, or if you're a they, them, gay on the spectrum, let's just find out real quick. How long do you wait to go to the bathroom? It's like a really fucking simple thing, okay? There are times where I'm like, I can hold it longer. Nope, I can hold it longer. I don't need to go yet. And then I'm almost peeing in my pants getting to the fucking toilet. Okay. And that's because I'm not even thinking about fucking going to the bathroom. It's ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? And so instead of like, what do I need? Like, men are already tending to their needs. Everybody's always tending to men's needs. Women are trained to tend to men's needs. So all the focus is on what does the men need? Men, whatever. Women are not tending to our needs, and hence we're burned out and focused on everybody else. So it's like, it's a total reframe, and it's an act of self-love to fucking focus on you, and it's an act of rebellion against the patriarchy to focus on you. And so like, that's the number one reframe. If I could give not just women, but like men to understand that that's where women are functioning from. Like, women are always going to have our fucking attention on you. We always know what the kids are doing and what the relationship is doing, what everything's doing. We're always going to tend to it. Like, if a man wants to come in and be like a divine provider, like, you come in, tell your lady to sit down. You got the food, go pee. You got her favorite fucking Starbucks or whatever she's drinking, and you got it handled. And then handle that shit and don't ask her any questions. And let her mind take a break and let her body take a break, because what she's doing all the time is like tending to everybody else, right? So yeah, that's patriarchy. If you think it's selfish, it's patriarchy. That's all that is, right? And men, because there's not one time a man takes care of himself where he ever feels selfish. It just doesn't exist.
Boom.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Man, I don't even know what to ask after that.
I mean, that was it. That was the whole episode.
That's the whole episode. I mean, man. So then you're learning how to be selfish, essentially.
Essentially, yeah. But look, what if selfish isn't wrong?
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, it's interesting having a kid, a daughter, going through school, learning some of these conversations that kind of leak out in school a little bit. And so she'll say, Mom, do you think I'm selfish? I'm like, we don't even fucking use that word. You know, selfish is a way to shame somebody. for something that they choose. If something doesn't work, I'm just like, hey, that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
We need to choose something else. Or like, I need you to think about what mommy needs right now too. You know, like I reframe her thinking. But to label somebody as selfish is the same to label them as what was the one I think we went over in the last call that she said
I can't remember.
when you're disrespecting me, right?
Oh, yes.
Like in the same, right? So those are the patriarchal paradigms to shift your actions from a shame perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're like, oh, it's selfish, what, to take care of me? That's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the weirdest thing I've ever fucking heard. I have to go pee, but it's selfish that I'm going to go pee now, or I have to wait till I'm going to go pee my pants. Like, that's selfish. Like, what is selfish about this, right? Like, oh, I'm hungry. I'm going to feed myself now. That's selfish. Oh, you wanted me to wait for you because then I would be selfless, and that's more attractive to men. That's all patriarchy, right? And so it's just manipulation to get women to do things. And honestly, in a lot of ways, me being divorced has been like the greatest gift in my 40s. Like, it's so freeing to do what I want to do and to be single. Like, there was a Joe Dispenza thing that was floating around, and he said, women who are single in their, and it might have had the age demographic, like 40s and 50s, right, are become the most emotionally balanced humans. Because there's like an introspection, and I'm not blaming somebody for my emotions, and nobody else is there to regulate me. So I regulate myself. I go inward and I'm like, what is that about? And like, what does it mean about me? And like, you know, how much quiet time do I have? I go out in the world, I'm like, it's fucking chaos out here. Like, I'll go back to my bubble, you know? And it's like, how would I have my house if it's my fucking house? Like, I'm going to have gold silverware because that sounds fucking amazing. Yeah. I want to have a bath at 3 p.m. because, my body feels like it wants a bath. And you know what? I don't want to explain myself to fucking anybody, you know? And it's like, that's an amazing reality, and it's amazing freedom. And so I think in a lot of ways where, you know, when I was first getting divorced, I remember we had a client. She was like, I don't know if I can, I don't think I can talk to you. Like, I don't respect you. You're getting a divorce. And I'm like, that's fascinating. Do you want to unpack that? Like, that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem, you know? And it's like this perspective of like, if you're a coach or you're a spiritual teacher, you should have it all figured out. And I'm like, I do. I'm getting a divorce. That, in fact, is figuring it all out, you know? And like the perspective now of like 5 years later, I'm like, best decision I ever made, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, so happy. It's amazing. So anyways, I know we're off track, but like the divine feminine, and there's this amazing energy that I feel like is like erupting and showing up on the planet, where women are just like tuning in and finding our truth. Now, if you're still stuck in the patriarchy and you know, whatever, I feel like I should be like, we have a course for that. If you're stuck in the patriarchy, I have a pill for that. I have a training for that, you know, like, what can I say? But like, I feel like that's, you know, but that's part of the evolution we're in now. And the energy on the planet is actually working with us instead of against us, which is what it was doing, was working against us. And that's why we had to fight so much. You don't have to fight so much now.
Totally. Yeah. So then, as you have been cultivating this divine feminine, learning how to be more selfish, like, how have you integrated that into business and work and like running your business?
It's in my cells and my DNA that the more I care for myself, the more women will find the space to care for them, because whatever's in my energy field is coming out, right? And so, you know, there are like non-negotiables, you know, as far as work times or phone calls. And I think it's like laying out how I want the business to go, but how I plan the business. And that really is the biggest part, because, you know, if you're free to work 60 hours a week, you'll find work for 60 hours a week. If you say, look, I'm going to do, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is like the times I'm really working.
Mm-hmm.
You'll fill that in. And so then, and giving myself the freedom and the okay, and this is really like the patriarchy undoing is like in the morning after I drop Cece, it's like I'm going to sit on the porch and sit in the, I would say sit in the sun. We literally have a snowstorm right now. We had sun and now we have a snowstorm. Welcome to Colorado. But I'll sit on the porch and sit in the sun, right? If somebody's like, oh, let's go snowboarding on a Thursday, I'll move Thursday stuff to Friday. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. That sounds fun. But only if I think it's fun. Only if my body is like a yes. Do you know what I mean? And then like a work day. Some days last night I was sending you stuff because I was on a roll. I actually was up until 11 p.m. doing some stuff. Yeah. And so this morning it was like, what do I want this for? It's like I kind of wake up and I'm like, Cece, should I take a shower before I take you to school? Or should I do it after? So that was the big fucking conversation we had, and I was like, I think I'm going to take a shower before I take you to school. So go entertain yourself. I'm like, I don't know. There's just a lot of freedom of hanging out with my plants or gardening in the sun when it's there or enjoying the snow when it's there or, not doing more doesn't get you more. Yeah. It's but if you're clear who you're serving, what you're serving and how you're serving, that's fine. That's all you should focus on.
And I have seen a lot of people who wait until they have a certain amount of success until they slow down and take time for themselves and do some of those things for themselves.
I think I was in that too. And I think that's got to be part of the old framework. Maybe that's the carrot in front of us. Do you know what I mean? The donkey with the carrot.
Oh, yeah.
You're once you do X, then you'll get Y. Once you do X, then you can give yourself Y. And when you really look at it, that shit never happens. So that I'll take a break when just never happens. I'll do it when I get all my to-do list done. That shit never goes away. So I think there's this acceptance, right? The surrender to what is and the acceptance of what is so that you can be calm or choose you every minute of the day.
Yeah. In the face of everything that's happening right now, I'm still going to choose this. In the face of America being a dumpster fire, I'm still going to choose being joy and living life this way and looking at the good news and holding the vision for what we want. In the face of whatever the circumstances are, I'm still going to choose this.
100%. It's but when you stand in that and you choose that, that's now what you're creating. And that's the thing that people are missing. So if I'm standing in the ease and I'm standing in the calm and I'm standing in the peace, then that's what I'm going to create. And I don't have to go, do in order to have a vacation. I live my life like I'm on vacation, right? And so there are things that I do almost every day that look like vacation that I would be doing if I was in another fucking country. And so I think that's the opportunity is how do you want to live your life? Start living it now. What do you want to choose in your life? Choose it now. And stop waiting, because when you wait, you're telling the universe not now, later. And the universe goes, oh, so you don't want that shit now. You want it later. And you never get it. So you have to choose it now. And so it's well, what do you want right now? It's I want to remodel my kitchen and put new windows in. And what was that? A few weeks ago, I was I called the cabinet company and I was where are we on this? Oh, we can deliver on this date. And then somebody else was we can deliver on this date. And then I was well, I guess the fucking kitchen remodel is happening on that date because fucking everybody's ready, And it was just because I made that one phone call. And so that's what intuition looks like too. And so if you're just fiercely listening to the intuition, paying attention to the synchronicities, and you step into it, that's really where all the ease comes from. Yeah. Everything else is you're trying to figure it out in a patriarchal framework, fighting against something, working too hard, creating more burnout. And that's what I'm that sounds fucking, I used to be there. Sounds terrible, feels terrible, was there once, and fucking don't want to go back.
Awesome. Well, before we close out the episode today, there are a couple questions about last week's episode as well. Yeah. And I think it pertains to what you were saying earlier. So question When you feel like everything is going wrong, how do you tap into your energy and focus on picking yourself?
Ooh, you won't like the answer. It's never going wrong. So it's like you have to start back at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it that anything's ever going wrong, right? The judgment that it's going wrong is going to have you miss out on something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't matter what you could give me. You go, dumpster fire in the United States, not wrong. Exactly in perfect timing on our path for what's next. It's got to burn down, all right? Divorce, not wrong. Exactly on my path for what needs to happen next. And so, like, anything, in business, anything we're looking at, it's never wrong. I'm like, what are we learning? What's the thing? What are we doing next? How's it working? Everything for me, every instance is giving me information for what I asked to create.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So whatever I asked to create is showing up for me. I'm just not a match for it yet. And so I'm looking at, like, how do I become a match for it?
Mm-hmm.
What was the second part of that question? Because that was the first part.
How do you tap into your energy and focus on picking yourself?
That starts with the foundation. So I think you and I were talking about this earlier today. There's no process for me.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm out of alignment and then I have to get back in alignment to choose me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's reframe this question. Let me see if I can tune in a little bit.
Go for it.
So if something doesn't feel good and you don't like what's happening, that's giving you information of, we don't like what's happening. It doesn't feel good. Okay. So that's a little bit different. So if I don't like what's happening and it doesn't feel good, then I need to look and go, what would make it feel better?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this showing up in my field right now? And that's going to give you better information. And so I'm always asking those questions. Why is this showing up in my field? What is it giving me? And what do I need to do about it? So a lot of times, and I think this is for a lot of people right now, it's like, you'll feel it. It's like using your throat chakra, like an activation of the throat chakra. What is it you need to say? What is it you need to say differently? What kind of no's could you give people? Do you see what I mean? And so, like, if you're not using your no and you're getting walked all over, it's not going to feel good. And you're like, why is this happening to me? This is so wrong. You're like, oh no, it's giving me information that I'm not using my voice. I'm not speaking up. I'm not and that's just one, I'm theorizing because I don't know this person's whole perspective on something, you know what I mean? But like, it's more about, oh, this is giving me information. I'm attracting this situation. What am I learning from it so I can change how I'm going about it? So for instance, if we're like, oh, I want a divine relationship, you may be dating a lot of duds to show you where your alignment is. To show you that you need to shift your alignment, and you may need to speak up and be like, homie, we don't play that. That's not part of my game. And so, like, if that's what's showing up, then that's on the path to the divine relationship. And that's just like one example, but you could use it with money and business and everything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I want to take that one step further, and
Yes.
I had a ping to ask this earlier. I feel like maybe someone listening may need to hear this. So inside of like being selfish and choosing yourself, there are lots
Is that
of
what we're calling this podcast episode? Be selfish.
Probably.
You. We should have shirts. Sorry, go ahead.
There are people that will set boundaries to have a different outcome or to choose themselves, or they will set boundaries. And I've heard you say before, like, to not set boundaries, and there's a difference between setting boundaries and directing the energy. Can you maybe expand on that?
Man, that's like a whole nother podcast topic because everybody's going to be up in the comments on this one.
I mean,
yeah. So let's see. It's first and foremost, I say no more than anybody who sets boundaries.
yeah.
So this isn't about, we don't set boundaries and we don't say no. They're actually two separate things. And so that's what we want to separate real quick, right? So a lot of times when people are setting boundaries, they're cutting off energy. And when you cut off energy, you cut off part of your intuition. And so that's the only reason why I don't enjoy quote unquote boundaries. I need to set a boundary. So I'm not talking to you unless you do da 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 da. I'm never talking to you again, and that's my boundary or something. I don't know. It's like it's almost a weird reframe for me. However, I give people lots of choices, and I think choices are really powerful. And I think if you're giving people choices, you're directing the energy. And I think if you give people choices and you tell them exactly what you want, you're reframing the reality to show up in a new way. And that for me is more powerful than you hurt my feelings and you need to like never talk to me again. Like, I don't even know. Somebody have to give me a boundary for me to fucking like figure out what that one is, right? So instead it's like, look, if you keep yelling at me, I'm going to stop talking to you. We could come back and talk if you're ready to have a civil conversation. But like, I'm not here for you yelling at me, right? That for me isn't a boundary. That's like a conversation where you're directing the energy. You told somebody what the thing was. And here's the other thing. I follow through on everything I say. And that's why my parenting is so good. So my daughter knows if I give her any sort of warning on anything and she keeps doing the thing, and every dude I date, they keep doing the thing. And I was like, look, if you keep doing this, it just doesn't work. I've given like this many options. This doesn't work. Or I've talked about this. This doesn't work. And then I follow through on whatever the thing is. Right. So maybe for some people, maybe that is a boundary. It's the boundaries where we cut off the energy and we lose access to our intuition inside of the scenario. And what I also don't like is when we feel victim, we feel attacked, we feel less than. So my whole premise is having people step into their power. So the second you feel less than and you try to do something about it with like harsh consequences, you actually didn't tune into your power. So what I'm interested in is like, look, you're doing all this chaos over here. I'm definitely not playing that game. If you want to talk to me, I'm fine, but you gonna have to do X, Y, Z. And I'm calm, I'm centered, and I redirect the energy. And almost like 9 times out of 10, that gets me exactly what I want, what I'm looking for, where I'm going. And so that's like a reframing, but it's also like super empowering. And it's fucking like badass when you start training yourself in it.
So the difference that I'm hearing is like a boundary can be cutting off the energy and saying like this will never happen because of something you did to me, and like not giving any other option or choice.
Yeah, and like there's a little bit of victimness in it. Like, you're doing this to me. I need to set a boundary. It's like, ugh. I'd rather you be a badass.
Yeah.
I don't have to go into victim.
And then redirecting the energy is like giving a choice of like, look, this is what's not working right now. Yeah. If you were to do this differently like this, then I would be willing to XYZ.
Yeah. And they go and like, they're like, I'm not willing to do that. And you're like, cool, well then this don't work. Move on.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. No drama. I'm like so not about the drama either.
That's a very like clear cut conversation, like cut and dry conversation too.
100%. And I think that's different. So we get out of the drama, we get out of the victim. It's just like, look, you do this, then we do this. You don't do this, then we don't do that, you know? And I think for people who, you know, a lot of our energy, I feel like gets stuck in those loops, in the drama. Like drama is very energy sucking. I don't have any drama. So I have lots of energy. Up till 11, back up at 6. Cece comes in, she's got lots of energy too. Nobody's got drama up in her.
Yeah.
She likes to be dramatic. That's a different story.
Well, one more question before we close out. So last episode we talked about the multiple life raft example. So when you're trying to follow intuition, but there's like multiple ways that you could follow intuition, and there may be a life raft that looks like the same old life raft that you've been using, or there may be like a speedboat, or like which one
Who's
to jump on.
dying? Why do we have life rafts? Did we talk about that?
We said life rafts.
We did?
Yeah.
Was it the guy on the... I'm like, what kind of life rafts? Who was dying in the last podcast?
No one was dying. I'm just recapping what the example was. So we were talking about when, like, on a river, like the things, the rafts come. Maybe it wasn't a life raft. It was just a raft.
Was it like there's a flood and you got like the helicopter and you got like, was it that one?
No flood. Just there's a flow coming down.
Oh, right.
And I have to say this in a specific way for you to get it. There's a flow and you're like catching the flow. You're like catching the wave and you're jumping on a raft to catch the flow. Yeah. So somebody asked, what if intuition feels like all these options that are new and different? All the options are new and different. And there's plenty of times where they're all different and all uncomfortable because they're all new. Would you still say it's not aligned with intuition if not a single one is standing out? Or is the alignment in the decision to jump and any of them are fair game?
Well, this person needs a coach. I know where to find one. It's common. So first is like, it's common when you're changing trajectory to have everything. Get on a fucking raft. That's my advice. Choose one. You're still trying to figure out which one is the best one. You know you should be on a raft. Do you see what I mean? Intuition is showing you to be on a raft. Okay. So if we look, I'll give you an example from what we were talking about. I quit my job, right? And I told my bosses I was quitting. Even they were like, are you going to work for another company? No, assholes. I'm not working. What are you going to do? I'm going to travel. They created an entire business for me.
Oh my gosh.
You should travel. You should be on social media. You should have people like tell you where you're going to go next. Like this will be really fun. And like 2 dudes married, kids. This was their good time. They were like living vicariously through me. Right. Yeah. I was like, okay. I quit to take photos. That's what I did. Got my new camera. I was like ready to rock and roll, or I had my new camera. I didn't do any of that. If you're like, okay, but there's all these life rafts, well, fucking choose one that gets exciting. It sounds like this person is looking for the right lifeboat. Do you see what I'm saying? Yep. We're still stuck on the right path. Your intuition is telling you to hop on a goddamn boat or a raft or whatever. Yeah. And like, if the pink floaty unicorn is the most exciting, fucking get on that one. Yeah. And you're like, none of them are exciting. Okay, but what's the first step you need to take right now? Well, I need to quit my job. Then fucking quit your job. But I need to know which life raft I'm going to get on. No, you don't. That's your logic system. And you're confusing it with intuition. Make sense?
Makes sense. And I think you don't have to be on the same life raft forever. You can always pick a different one.
Dude, we take a paddleboard and 2 unicorns to the fucking lake. My kid will hop on one and float across, and I got to hop on another. And it's a crapshoot which one we're doing. And it doesn't matter. Don't do the unicorn with the paddle thing if you're my size, because that topples over and it's a shit show and I end up yelling at her. But like, I was trying to do a rescue mission on a unicorn. It was not. Oh my gosh. It was terrible.
It reminds me of your turning something into a Porsche, a Volvo into a Porsche.
Oh, we should talk about that one next time, huh?
Next time we'll dive more into that, and maybe that'll help answer the question too. But
yeah, I think for now, for that listener, choose a life path. Life path. See? Life raft. Life path, life raft. Choose one. Stop overthinking it. You're overthinking it thinking that's intuition, and it's not, because intuition gave you 12 different options. And you're looking for the right one, and you're looking for the one that's like gonna super light you up. Who cares? Just fucking choose one. So equally speaking, if somebody was like talking to us about like hiring us and they're like, well, I have all these options of courses, then fucking choose one. Which one should I choose? I think you should choose mine because I'm talking to you and you're talking to me. And that seems like fucking alignment. But you're going to hang up the phone and then you're going to do something else. Like choose something. Take a fucking step is my point, right?
Yeah.
I actually I'm such an advocate for people taking action. I'm like, take fucking action. The reason I always say my program is because everybody who's done all the other programs comes and does this one as like the last program. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we got all that magic from all the other programs. You know what I mean? But like, if you are not ready for like a fire hose of magic, then fucking say so and choose something else. But like, choose something. Mm-hmm. Get your ass in gear to choose something. This is why I'm an Aries rising. I'm like, what the fuck are we waiting for, people? What is going on? The moon or the fucking sun or something's in Aries right now. So like, people hop on the Aries train for a little bit. Take some fucking action.
I was gonna say, you've got the Aries, you got the redhead, you got lots of shit going on in your
That's why
design.
I'm gonna need to have like 3 boyfriends to keep up with me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna all of a sudden be like, one boyfriend seems silly. You guys, let's try 3.
Why not? All right, we're going to close up the episode today. I've been Ronnie. This has been Tamara. Thanks for being on with us. We'll see you next week. Keep making magic, y'all. Thanks so much for tuning in with us. We know that time is a precious resource, and we're grateful you'd spend an hour of yours with us, shifting your perspective and expanding in your divine feminine power. If today's conversation resonated with you, help us grow. Rate the show, subscribe, and keep following for more. Remember, we're here every Tuesday with new episodes. But until then, find me on LinkedIn. It's my favorite way to connect. Want to dive deeper into the work? Start with our training series, The Sacred Success Code. Specifically designed for women to reclaim their time and energy, this is a great first step toward divine success without sacrifice. Links are in the description. And if you're ready to work with Tamara and I on a personal, deeper level in our 12-month flagship program, email me. Have any questions you want us to answer on the next episode? Email me. Until next time, keep honoring your divine feminine magic.